Part 14. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 131. Once he heard what Zhang Ziluo said, Lin Zuzu knew that Zhang Ziluo was serious. She really planned to order something from Uncle Han. Lin Zuzu looked at Zhang Ziluo, and a lot of emotions surged up in her heart. She wanted to say something, but her throat seemed to be blocked. Seeing that Lin Zuzu didn't look right and her eyes were still a little red, Zhang Ziluo asked, "What's wrong?" Lin Zuzu choked slightly and said, "No, I just think Sister Zhang, you are really, really good." She couldn't find any adjectives to describe it. And she is different from others. Really beautiful and kind. If she were a man, he would definitely like Sister Zhang. It's just that she is a woman. She is a woman, and she also thinks Sister Zhang is good. Let alone men. Lin Zuzu thought to herself that Sister Jiang's husband must treat her like a treasure. Zhang Ziluo smiled softly and said, "I am just doing business. So, I don't have to go shopping to buy anything for the time being. I'm going home with the pig's guts and meat." Originally, Zhang Ziluo wanted to go shopping and see where she could get custom-made wooden jars and containers. Now there is a solution. There is no need to worry about the container problem, and Zhang Ziluo breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Zuzu nodded, "Okay." When Zhang Ziluo took the things home, Mrs. Kui had just steamed the swilihong and was drying it in the yard. "Hey, Ziluo, did you come back so early today? It's only half the morning, not even noon yet. Usually when I sell kuakui, I don't come back until noon in the morning." Zhang Ziluo said, "All the chili con carne is sold, so I came back early." Mrs. Kui was immediately shocked when she heard this. Her eyes widened in disbelief. What, they were all sold so quickly? Mrs. Kui couldn't believe those 2 large barrels of chili con carne sauce. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, "Well, the total sold was 1,530 cents. Including the braised pig sesame that was settled yesterday, it's almost 3 taels of silver. Someone happened to buy a big bucket in the morning, so the stall was closed early. I bought some more pork and let's go ahead and make some chili con carne." Zhang Ziluo didn't say anything about accepting a disciple, because she didn't want Mrs. Kui and the others to worry too much. As for the abilities and secrets of her previous life, Zhang Ziluo doesn't want to expose them for the time being. Mrs. Kui and Kui Hejin probably didn't know that she knew martial arts. Mrs. Kui was very happy when she came to her senses. Does this mean that the chili meat sauce business is better than the kuakui business? Sold out so quickly. Mrs. Kui wanted to dry the swilihong quickly so that Ziluo could help make chili meat sauce. Zhang Ziluo said, "It is easier to make chili meat sauce. You don't have to make it and sell it now. You can make it in advance and set up a stall in the town to sell it. It is much simpler and saves time. Set up a stall in the town and just scoop it out to everyone. And this thing is not afraid of letting it cool, let alone leftovers, because it can be stored for a long time. In this case, the pressure will be less. It doesn't need to be the same as kuakui, control the quantity and don't make too much. You can make more chili con carne. And I went to Lingxi village in the afternoon. I heard that someone in their village can make wooden boxes and jars. I went to customize some, and the price is cheap, so that we can package them and sell them, and they will look more high-end." Zhang Ziluo felt that it might be easier to sell if it was packaged. Can be easily sold to some people along the dock. It can also be sold to passing merchants. Or you can go to the town and sell it to some residents along the street, which is much more convenient than cooking. "Do you need me to go with you?" Mrs. Kui felt that if Ziluo needed her, she would come with her. She guessed that Ziluo should have heard what Lin Zuzu said. Lin Zuzu is from Lingxi village, so the news cannot be false. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, "Mom, I'm not a child. I'll go to town to find Lin Zuzu in the afternoon, and she will take me back to the Han family in Lingxi village. Mrs. Kui nodded and said, "That's okay." She knows that Zhiluo has rules and regulations for doing things and has more ideas than she does. She doesn't have to worry about much. By the way, your Aunt Zhu came here this morning and said that the roof beams will be raised in a few days. Should we buy some firecrackers and prepare some snacks to light them up then? When Zhang Zhiluo heard this, she remembered that the custom in their village was to set off firecrackers to celebrate and sprinkle snacks on the beams when building a house. People in the village will go to grab the snacks. Thinking of this, Zhang Zhiluo moved her hands and said, "Then I will buy some firecrackers in the town, and we can make some snacks ourselves." Speaking of making dim sum, Zhang Zhiluo thought that it would be better to make dim sum if there was a mold. She even wanted to make bread, but it was a pity that there was no oven in this era. Mrs. Kui smiled and said, "Okay, let's make some snacks. We happen to have some noodles at home." Zhang Zhiluo nodded, "Well, we can do more to make it more lively." Mrs. Kui dried the steamed swilihong, then washed her hands and went in to help Zhang Zhiluo cut the meat to make chili meat sauce. She thought about the house with a smile on her face. "When I thought about the house being built up to the rafters, I felt happy. I took a look at the courtyard and the rooms. Every room is beautiful, and the bathrooms you mentioned are very different. Everyone who helped build it said that it would be comfortable to live in a house like this." Mrs. Kui felt that her Zhiluo was really capable. She was also proud when she said it. She was her daughter-in-law. Zhang Zhiluo was also a little excited. It will be much more convenient to wash in a new house. There is also a special room for storing firewood and miscellaneous items, so that the firewood will not get wet on rainy days. Furthermore, the walls she designed are very thick. Add more walls so that the house will be warm in winter and cool in summer. There are also cellars and ice cellars, suitable for storing things. Well, as long as mother is happy. Zhang Zhiluo and Mrs. Kui worked hard for a while, and it was noontime to make the chili meat sauce. After a simple lunch, Zhang Zhiluo went back to her room to draw the wooden barrels and snack molds. She thought to herself that since the family could carve letters and make rouge boxes, they should also be able to make molds. She draws it first, so that if she tells the other person, they will know how to make it and what it will look like. Zhang Zhiluo painted wooden jars in two sizes. One is a small jar, holding half a kilogram of chili meat sauce, and the other is larger, holding exactly 1 kilogram of chili meat sauce. In this way, everyone can buy half a caddy or 1 caddy. Mrs. Kui is braised pig meat at home. After Zhang Zhiluo finished the painting, she packed some chili con carne and went to the town to find Lin Zizhu. When it comes to visiting people, even if they order something, Zhang Zhiluo doesn't think it's appropriate to go empty-handed. "So I brought something interesting." Lin Zizhu had just finished selling out all the items and closed the stall. "This is today's braised food income. I'll give it to you. Otherwise, I'll pay you the settlement tomorrow morning." Usually after Zhang Zhiluo has finished setting up a stall in the morning, she goes to Lin Zizhu's stall, and Lin Zizhu settles the money she received from selling braised meat the day before. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 132. After Zhang Zhiluo gave her the commission given to Lin Zizhu, she still had 1,566 yuan in her hand. Lin Zizhu was very happy as she held the 174 coins in her hand. She can earn more than 100 yuan by doing random things every day, and it can also drive the pork business. She is very happy. She guessed in her heart that if Sister Zhang did some other business and added braised food, she would earn at least 2 taels of silver a day. That month there should also be 60 taels of silver. Lin Zizhu's expression changed and she said, "Sister Zhang, have you ever thought about buying a store in the town, even if it's smaller, so you don't have to move things around every day? And you don't have to worry about getting wet on rainy days. It's better now that spring has warmed up if it's summer or winter, Setting up a stall outside will be particularly hard. When the weather is hot in summer, people still like to go to places with stores to buy things, where they can bask in the sun. It snows a lot in winter. When it snows heavily, it's hard to walk. I sold pork last winter. It snowed heavily in the afternoon, so I stayed in a house in the town for one night. My parents were worried about me traveling in the heavy snow. Lin Zizhu also sincerely considers Zhang's Hiluo. Zhang's Hiluo was moved and said, "It is indeed much better to have a store." Sister Lin, do you know the stores on the dock side of town? What are the prices? Lin Zizhu said, "The store here at the dock, the small one, costs more than 100 taels of silver, and the larger one costs more than 200 taels of silver. I also bought a small house in the north because the price here is high. Although the place is remote, the house can be lived in. I bought this small house in a remote place and it was small. It cost me 92 taels of silver." Once she heard the price, Zhang Ziluo could only put down the matter of buying a store. Although she now earns 2 to 3 taels of silver a day, it costs a lot to build a house, plus buying medicinal materials, which are also expenses. She doesn't have much money in her hands, so she doesn't dare to think about buying a house for the time being. "The price is a bit expensive, please wait for a while. I hope to buy a store before summer, and then doing business in the store will not be so hard. And if you want to expand your business, you really need a store. Even if it's a signboard, that's fine. After the house is built and the furniture is customized, I probably don't even have a few taels of silver on hand." Kui Hejin and Mrs. Kui soon finished their medicine and needed to buy more. It is necessary to recuperate Kui Hejin's body first before he can be completely cured. And there are still key medicinal materials that have not been purchased. I was the first to ask Zhuang Xing'an before, and Zhuang Xing'an said that those medicinal herbs are difficult to find and uncommon. Even so, Zhang's Hiluo must persist. Xinglan Pavilion has been closed recently. After finishing the medicine for Kui Hejin and Mrs. Kui, they didn't know where to buy it. Thinking of this, Zhang's Hiluo asked, "By the way, do you know the recent news about Xinglan Pavilion?" Lin Zizhu said, "I heard customers mention it when they came to buy pork, saying that Xinglan restaurant has been closed since the fire, but I heard that Dru is still there, and he may reopen Xinglan restaurant elsewhere in a few days. The previous store was burned beyond recognition, and it will take time to renovate." In this way, Zhang Ziluo felt relieved. In this way, Zhang Ziluo and Lin Zizhu were talking while driving Lin Zizhu's bullock cart to Lingxi village. Walking a short distance from the town, you can reach Lingxi village by going up the hillside and then down the hillside. That is to say, to climb over a mountain and be on the other side of the mountain. The ox cart drove for more than half an hour before arriving at Lingxi village. Lin Zizhu knew that Zhang Ziluo was in a hurry and would have to go home in the dark if she was late. So she took Zhang Ziluo to a thatched house at the back of the village. "This is Uncle Han's house." Zhang Ziluo looked at the simple thatched house in front of her, crumbling under the wind, and her expression changed. "I thought the small fenced courtyard where their family lived was simple, but compared with the thatched house in front of me, it was considered good." Looking at Zhang Ziluo's shocked look, Lin Zizhu explained, "If the weather is bad and it rains and snows, Uncle Han and Brother Han will go to live in the cave behind. Anyway, the conditions are quite simple. Every household in Lingxi village, the conditions are not very good and there are not many people who can help. Lin Zizhu's parents would often help Uncle Han and the others. But Uncle Han and the others don't like to accept help from others. Feeling that I don't fit in with the people in the village." But her parents said that Uncle Han's family are all good people. When the heavy snow closed the mountains, his father was trapped on the road. It was Uncle Han who rescued his father. Lin Zizhu walked over gently, knocked on the shaky wooden door and said, "Uncle Han, are you at home? Uncle Han, Uncle Han." Lin Zizhu called several times but no one answered. Zhang Ziluo said, "Will you be away from home?" Lin Zizhu said, "When Uncle Han is at home, Sometimes he is not willing to talk to others. At this moment, a young man wearing shabby linen came over carrying water. He looked about 18 or 19 years old, with a slender figure, a bit messy hair, cold white and thin lines on his face, and eyes like a lone wolf, with a natural sense of fierceness. "My father is not here." After saying that, he carried water into the house. Not a word at all. Lin Zuzu seemed to be used to this person being like this. She didn't waste any time and said directly, "Brother Han, this is my friend Zhang Ziluo. She wants to order wooden jars." Upon hearing these words, Han Binky put down the water in the water, and then looked back at Zhang Ziluo. His eyes moved at the end, he looked cold and wild, and he looked very difficult to get along with. Lin Zuzu was a little scared when talking to him. If she had known that Uncle Han was not here, she would not have come here. But Ziluo came all the way. She was really worried that she went back without even discussing the business, and Ziluo would not come back next time. "Brother Han, I also have a business relationship with Sister Zhang. She is very nice and the food she makes is delicious. Do you think we can talk about the business?" Han Binky didn't say anything, just looked at Zhang Ziluo. Zhang Ziluo curled her lips. Although this person looked as lonely as a wolf, he understood that her words were the key. She said directly, "I am in the chili con carne business, so I want to order some wooden jars. This is the picture I drew. You can take a look. The dimensions are also marked on it." Speaking, Zhang Ziluo handed over the paper she had drawn long ago. Han Binky glanced at it lightly and said, "Okay. Price." Zhang Ziluo understood what he meant and said, "I wonder what your pricing is." Han Binky said, "1 penny each." Zhang Ziluo's expression changed. "Is it really so cheap?" She looked at the man's fingers. They were long and slender, but they seemed to have a lot of scars. Looking at his bare feet, his pants are quite short. Her expression changed, and she said, 1.5 cents each. I will order 100 large jars first, use them first, and then I will order them for later use." Speaking, Zhang Ziluo took out 150 yuan from her pocket. 1.5 cents is considered cheap, and they are available on the market for 2 or 3 cents each. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 133. Lin Zuzu's eyes widened. Isn't it? There is also this way of bargaining. It's just more than 100 cents at a time, which is enough to feed Uncle Han's family for a while. Look at how thin Brother Han has become. Han Binky was startled for a moment, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He was not in a hurry to accept the 150 coins and said, "Collect the deposit first." Zhang Ziluo said, "No, I trust you. This is 150 coins. Pay it all first. If we cooperate next time, I will pay a deposit first and pay all the copper coins when the goods are delivered." Han Binky's expression changed now. He took a deep look at Zhang Ziluo, and the coldness on his body subsided slightly. He said nothing more and took the money. Zhang Ziluo could see that there were many criss-crossing scars on his hands, which were a bit shocking. "I still have this drawing. Please help me make 2 more molds. I will use them to make snacks." "Okay, these 2 don't charge money." Zhang Ziluo listened to Han Binky's words without being pretentious. "This is the chili con carne I made myself, let you try it?" "No need." Han Binky cherished words like gold as always. Zhang Ziluo said lightly, a little thought. "Delivery in 3 days." Zhang Ziluo blinked, "Is it delivered to your home?" Lin Zuzu said quickly, "Thank you, Brother Han. Sister Zhang lives in Donghe village. You can just ask the Kui family directly." Han Binky nodded and carried the bucket into the house to pour water. Zhang Ziluo and Lin Zuzu came out. Lin Zuzu breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Don't worry, Sister Zhang. Uncle Han and Brother Han are very trustworthy. Although they don't like to talk, they will do what they say and promise. They deliver it when they say it will be delivered, so you don't have to travel so far." Zhang Ziluo nodded, looked at Lin Zuzu and said, "Are you so afraid of him?" After Lin Zuzu pulled Zhang Ziluo for a certain distance, she whispered, "Don't you think Brother Han's coldness is a bit scary? Just like a wild beast, yes, just as dangerous as a wild beast. I feel that the young ladies who proposed marriage to Brother Han broke off the engagement because they were afraid of Brother Han after meeting him. Even I can't stay in the same room as Brother Han, it feels so cold." Lin Zuzu complained for a moment, then looked at Zhang Ziluo's normal look and couldn't help but admire her. "Sister Zhang, you are still awesome, you are not affected at all." Zhang Ziluo smiled lightly and said, "They are all normal people, there is nothing to be afraid of." 2. Lin Zuzu thought so, but sometimes she couldn't help but feel out of control. This is also the reason why people in the village know that they are good, but are not willing to contact them. Lin Zuzu invited Zhang Ziluo to sit at her home, but Zhang Ziluo declined. She saw that it was getting late, so she was anxious to go home so as not to worry her mother and Kui Hejin. Thinking of this, Zhang Ziluo's expression changed. Is Kui Hejin worried? Zhang Ziluo actually couldn't control Kui Hejin's thoughts. But she walked back quickly. When it got dark, Zhang Ziluo finally returned to the village. It was getting dark. When Zhang Ziluo entered the village, she could see the dim candlelight emitting from many houses. The sound of dogs barking can be heard from time to time in the village. Woof, woof woof. Walking through the alleys in the village, you can hear laughter coming from some houses. When Zhang Ziluo came to their alley, she saw a figure standing at the door from a distance. In the night, the starlight stretched his figure very long. The lights of the stars shrouded his body like a blessing, making his whole body seem to be filled with moonlight and watery light, 3 parts like jade and 7 parts like an immortal. The moment Zhang Ziluo saw Kui Hejin's figure, her heart beat several times uncontrollably. His charming and picturesque face always had a strong impact on her. Made her heart throb uncontrollably. Zhang Ziluo walked over slowly. Kui Hejin seemed to hear the sound and turned around. The moment he saw Zhang Ziluo, he breathed a sigh of relief and walked a few steps towards Zhang Ziluo, back. He did not ask where she had gone, nor why she came back so late. Just like a man waiting for his wife, waiting patiently and gently for her to return. "Well, I'm back. Have you been waiting for me at the door?" Kui Hejin's cold expression softened, and the cold aura dissipated. "No, I'm just worried about you." "I can't help but feel worried." Zhang Ziluo's heart trembled suddenly. She couldn't believe what she heard. "Are you worried about me?" "Why?" Kui Hejin stretched out his hand, and his fingers seemed to be close to her eyebrows, but in the end he gently placed them on her head, caressed her gently and said, "You are my wife." I don't know if this answer made her a little disappointed in her heart. Is it just because she is a wife in name only that she is worried? But at least there is progress compared to before. At least he is not so indifferent to her and is worried about her. "You don't ask me what I did." Kui Hejin said warmly, "If you want to say something, just say it. If you don't want to say something, don't say it." He seemed to have a good temper towards her. I have to say that this feeling made Zhang Ziluo feel very comfortable and relaxed. There were rosin candles burning in the room, and Mrs. Kui was cleaning the stove. Mrs. Kui is very fond of cleanliness. She will wipe the stove several times when she has nothing to do. If you don't sit down, you will think wildly. When she saw Zhang Ziluo coming back, Mrs. Kui breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It's good that she's back. She hasn't come back so late at night, so she doesn't feel too anxious." When it gets dark, He-jin goes out and waits. It is estimated that no matter how late it is, he will go to Lingxi village to find you. She knows best about her own son. Looking deserted, but facing such a good Zhiluo, how can one really remain indifferent? Zhang Zhiluo said apologetically, I made you worry, I will pay attention next time. Mrs. Kui said, next time I will go with you. You are really worried about going to such a far place alone. She just didn't expect that it would be a bit late once she came back. It's good when you get back. I'll bring out the dinner right away and we'll eat together. Mrs. Kui cooked dinner and put it in the pot to heat up. She and Kui Hejin were used to waiting for Zhiluo to eat together. The food tastes delicious only when the family sits together to eat. I wasn't very good at cooking before, but according to the method you taught Zhiluo, the food now tastes pretty good. I stir-fried shredded radish and stewed mushroom soup. Eating it warm will warm you up. Although spring has begun, it is still cold at night. Zhang Zhiluo was not actually afraid of walking on the road, but it was indeed a bit cold at night. As soon as I got home, I looked at Mrs. Kui and Kui Hejin, felt the light of the candles and the warmth of the food, and felt my whole body warm up. A feeling of warmth from the heart to the limbs. Zhang Zhiluo smiled and said, I made an agreement with the Han family in Lingxi village this afternoon to make 100 wooden jars first, and they will be delivered in 3 days. End of chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 134. Mrs. Kui nodded and said, well, that's good. Mrs. Kui blamed herself a little. She looked at Zhang Zhiluo and wanted to say something. Looking at Mrs. Kui's expression, Zhang Zhiluo knew that she was having random thoughts again. Mom, I know where I'm going when I go out. If I need my mother to accompany me wherever I go, I will definitely tell her. If I don't need her, it means it's okay. I know I'll be back in the evening. Besides, my husband has given me a dagger to defend myself, so it'll be fine. Thinking of the dagger Kui Hejin gave her before, Zhang Zhiluo cherished it very much. She placed it in the space to ensure that the dagger would not be lost. This is the first time she has received a gift from him in this life, and she likes it very much. Hearing what Zhang Zhiluo said, Mrs. Kui relaxed a little. Mrs. Kui gave Zhang Zhiluo some vegetables and meat and said, you work the hardest every day, so eat more. The family had dinner happily. Zhang Zhiluo wanted to get up and help clean up, but Kui Hejin refused. You go back to the house and have a rest. Speaking, Kui Hejin helped clear the dishes and table. Wash the dishes and wipe the table after cleaning up. Zhang Zhiluo couldn't help but look at his figure. I feel that Kui Hejin is more attractive when doing housework. She is so noble and beautiful, so good looking, and when doing housework, her every move exudes a dignified and elegant temperament. It seems as if you are not doing housework, but doing some art. Zhang Zhiluo couldn't look away. After Kui Hejin finished his work, he put the dishes and chopsticks into the cabinet. He turned around and saw Zhang Zhiluo standing by the door. He asked softly, what's wrong? Zhang Zhiluo shook her head and said, it's nothing. I just think it looks good and I can't help but look at it more. But she didn't want Kui Hejin to find out about her little thoughts. The next day, when Zhang Zhiluo went to the town to set up a stall selling chili con carne, many people came to buy it. Little lady, this hot sauce you made is so delicious. What you said is really good, especially for dinner. We wanted to buy it yesterday, but your stall was no longer there. Yes, we were worried that you would stop doing this, but fortunately you still set up a stall today. I want to buy 2 more pounds this time. It's so comfortable to eat. I can eat dry food directly without vegetables at all. I don't know how you made it, little lady, and why it tastes so delicious. That's right, it's so delicious. I bought too little yesterday. The whole family will finish it in a few days, so I'd better buy more in advance. Yes, this thing is easy to store and delicious to eat anytime. As everyone talked, They all started to line up. This time, there was no need for Zhang Ziluo to yell, everyone came over to buy chili meat sauce. Zhang Ziluo couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth when she saw the booming business. According to this case, you can go home in 1 hour, which is almost 2 hours. Go home early and do other things. While Zhang Ziluo was busy with business, Wei Xingyi came over with 3 followers. At this time, the 3 followers stopped trying to persuade the young master. They looked at the vat of chili con carne with gleaming eyes across the crowd. Smelling the fragrance from a distance makes my mouth water. Wei Xingyi ran 3 kilometers early in the morning and came back to take a shower. He didn't care about eating and wanted to come to the dock stall to take a look. He originally wanted to squeeze in, but seeing everyone queuing up, he also queued up. When he arrived at Wei Xingyi, he opened his mouth and shouted, "Master!" Zhang Ziluo said helplessly, "What's the matter?" Wei Xingyi said, "That, I want to buy them all. This is so delicious. The people in our agency said they can't eat enough. They have big appetites. My dad also said it was delicious and wanted to bring some to some friends." At this moment, half of the large vat of chili con carne has been sold, and this is the other half, and there is also a large basin. You even took the barrel yesterday and didn't send it back to me. Upon hearing this, Wei Xingyi was stunned. He touched the back of his head and said, "That, I forgot." He turned to look at Lin Fan and said, "Go quickly and give me the barrel from yesterday, bring it back to Mrs. Zhang." "Yes." Lin Fan hurriedly ran to get it. "The people behind are quitting." "What, you want to buy them all?" "Young man, you bought them all, what should we buy?" "That's right, young man, can you let us buy a pound first?" "Yeah, we're in line too." Wei Xingyi listened to the words of some people behind him and rubbed his head, not knowing what to say. "But he also wants to buy it." Zhang Ziluo thought for a while and said, "If you want to buy chili meat sauce for the people in the agency, you might as well make a reservation in advance." "What to book in advance?" Zhang Ziluo said, "If you buy a lot, you can tell me in advance and I will send it to the agency for you after I finish it. But you need to pay a deposit first." Wei Xingyi suddenly became excited and said, "Is this still possible?" Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Of course. In the later stage, you can order the chili con carne sauce in advance and hand over the order after it is ready. But if there are too many, you can't finish them in one day, so you need more time." Wei Xingyi thought for a while and said, "Then I'll order in advance. After I finish eating, can I still order more?" Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Well, you are almost finished eating, you can place your order. I will prepare it and send it to the agency." "That's great. I'll order 60 kilograms first, no, 80 kilograms. There are a lot of people in the agency. Everyone has a big appetite. I'll order these for the big guys first. There's chili meat sauce. They go out to escorts. You can have a full meal even with dry food." In fact, Wei Xingyi really didn't pay attention to such things at first. Unexpectedly, everyone said it was delicious after eating it. Even after he ate it, he also enjoyed eating it. The same is true for his father. He said that he could eat several bowls of rice after mixing it with rice last night. His father is very busy with the affairs of the agency on weekdays, and he doesn't even bother to have a good meal. His mother is very worried. Now that he has this thing, he doesn't have to worry anymore. His father ate 2 more bowls of rice than usual last night. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Yes, 80 pounds. I will deliver it to you in 3 days." 3 days later, the Han family just finished making 100 jars. "This jar is enough. I will put it in a jar so that it is convenient for you to carry when you go out." Wei Xingyi said happily, "It's still a teacher, it's the young lady who is so considerate. I almost called him master." Although he didn't scream, in his heart, Zhang Ziluo was his master. Wei Xingyi knew the price, which was 30 cents per caddy, a total of 2 taels of silver and 400 cents. Wei Xingyi gave everything to Zhang Ziluo. He knew that the master liked to get it down to 1 copper coin, so he did not directly give 3 taels of silver. Zhang Ziluo said, "Just pay the deposit first." Wei Xingyi insisted, "Anyway, I have to give you all. Besides, I also want to give you the money you taught me. I was running with the sandbag this morning. I ran very slowly at first and couldn't run at all, but after I ran down and took the sandbag, I felt that my legs were so light." He felt it was amazing, and his whole body felt much lighter. He believes that if he continues running like this, he will gain something. End of chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 135. Zhang Ziluo was a little surprised when she saw Wei Xingyi's excitement. She raised her eyebrows and asked, "You didn't feel tired, and you didn't think about giving up during the run?" Wei Xingyi patted his heart, raised his head and said, "Of course, how could I give up? I will always persist and wait for the master to teach me the real kung fu." Looking at Wei Xingyi's appearance, Zhang Ziluo felt that he had the passion and frivolity of a young man. But the more such a person is, the more seriously he can stick to one thing. Perhaps he can really achieve good results in martial arts. Zhang Ziluo was amused by his appearance and said, "You just believe that I will teach you martial arts?" Of course I believe in master." When Wei Xingyi shouted the word master, he deliberately lowered his voice so that others could not hear it. He didn't know why he believed in the master in front of him. Obviously she is only 15 years old, 1 year younger than him. But he didn't know why, but he always felt that his master had a convincing power. She obviously looks very thin, wearing coarse linen clothes, and looks pure and refined. Who would have thought that using his hands would be so scary, sharp and cold? Wei Xingyi didn't even know that his eyes were very bright when he looked at his master. If we were in the age of technology, this kind of look would make people feel like the eyes of a star-chasing person. Zhang Ziluo's expression changed. She knew that Wei Xingyi was not lying. She can see clearly whether a person's expression is real or not. After a pause, Wei Xingyi said, "Besides, it was really hard when I was running with the sandbag tied to it this morning, but after I took off the sandbag after running, I felt very comfortable." The feeling of practicing martial arts is a bit different from what he used to do. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Keep persevering." "Good." Wei Xingyi was very happy. He opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something else. Zhang Ziluo looked at him and said, "What's wrong?" "Master, I would like to invite you to my home. I will officially become your master and serve you tea." When Zhang Ziluo thought of that scene, the corners of her mouth twitched fiercely. She knew that there was a difference between becoming a master in this era and being called a master in modern times. After worshipping a master, that is how you truly treat your elders. You must respect and be filial to your master. Otherwise, someone will poke you in the back. Zhang Ziluo quickly waved her hands and said, I don't pay attention to these things, it doesn't have to be like this." Seeing Zhang Ziluo's resolute attitude, Wei Xingyi could only lower his head and nodded. In Wei Xingyi's heart, he felt that he was truly at peace after having a tea ceremony and becoming a master. But he did not dare to force the master to do anything. "Yes. Hey, young man, if you don't want to buy something, can you get out of the way and let us buy it?" "That's right, we'll have something to do when we get back later. We've been waiting in line for a while, just waiting to buy something. The chili con carne made by my wife is so delicious, adding even a little bit of vegetables to the stir-fry makes it more flavorful." "That's right, young man, people can't be so selfish, don't stand in the way of us." "Young man, my legs are not very sharp, I feel unsteady after standing for a long time, can you please make room quickly?" There were many aunties and old ladies in the back who didn't know what to say when they saw Wei Xingyi standing in front. It took a while. At first, we were worried that he would buy everything, but after hearing that he decided in advance and didn't buy anything, everyone was relieved. But I'm still in a hurry and buy it back quickly, otherwise it will be gone if I buy it too late. Some people are ship owners. They have to haul goods to other docks and will not be back for several days. They are in a hurry to buy something to eat on the way. This will really make you rush. There are also large merchant shipmen who buy things and get on the ship directly, so there are more than 20 people queuing behind, both men and women. But men are generally not very good at speaking, and they are all urged by ladies and gentlemen. Before Wei Xingyi had a good conversation with his master, he was being urged from behind. It is true that even if he thinks about it, he cannot affect his master's business. Hurry and get out of the way. In the past, he would not have been so easy to talk to. The one tyrant in the county is him. But facing his master and being crushed by force, he would not dare to be rude. Wei Xingyi briefly said a few words to his master and quickly moved out of the way. The people behind continue to buy things. Zhang Ziluo feels that buying chili con carne is really easy, as she doesn't have to make and sell things at the same time. It is indeed not easy to set up a stall and sell food. One person is busy with the work at hand while collecting money. Sometimes it is really a bit hectic. But those who have done it all year round are used to it. But many food stalls are run by husband and wife partners. And also have to be able to deal with all kinds of questions from aunts and ladies. Those who have a bad temper are really anxious when talking. Those who are not good at speaking don't know how to speak. No wonder my parents were a little frightened when they heard about the food business and felt that it would not be possible. We also set up stalls every day, but we may not have the time. In addition, my father's legs are not good, so my mother and younger brothers and sisters also have to do the housework. It is now mid-March, and many people have begun to grow vegetables and grains. Wheat is usually planted last winter, so most people grow vegetables, corn, peanuts, and other crops. When it comes to farming, it is the busiest and most difficult time. Some people's conditions are good, and it is better to have oxen. Using oxen to pull plows makes people feel more relaxed. Most people have to use a rope to pull the plowing tool behind the shoulder, pull out a long furrow, and sprinkle crop seeds. Long furrows were pulled out one by one with plows. After a whole day of work, many people were so tired that they couldn't get up the next morning and couldn't move. Zhang Ziluo thought of her past memories. I remember that every time my father farmed, he usually farmed the land with 2 or 3 neighbors in the village. It is true that women cannot pull the plow. They are too tired and do not have the strength. There are 2 men, one pulling the plow tool in front and the other pushing it behind. 3 families plowed their land together, and at least 3 men could take turns pulling the plow, which would slow down their strength. Don't be so tired that you can't move all of a sudden. Thinking of her parents, brothers, and sisters, Zhang Ziluo couldn't help but miss them. She still had to find ways to make more money. She felt that only with money could she be able to heal Kui Hejin's body, her father's legs, and her third sister's face. Only by being able to be kind to the people around you can you help reduce the pressure and burden on your parents. Thinking of this, Zhang Ziluo worked more energetically, talked to the ants, and smiled sweeter. When Wei Xingyi left the dock and walked home, he was thinking about his next run. At the corner, he suddenly met a person. Wei Xingyi was caught off guard and was shocked. When he saw the person in front of him clearly, he was stunned for a moment. Chen, Ms. Chen. Looking at Wei Xingyi's surprised eyes, Chen Huidi felt slightly flustered. Chen Huidi is still used to Wei Xingyi's crazy attitude towards her before. That way, she felt that she was very attractive and could hold Wei Xingyi tightly in her hand. Chen Huidi looked at Wei Xingyi, looking like he was about to cry, "Young Master Wei." Chen Huidi's eyes were red and pitiful, and she couldn't shed tears. She was most pitiful and pitiful. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 136. Wei Xingyi looked at Chen Huidi like this and said at a loss, "Miss Chen, don't cry. What's wrong with you?" Looking at the beauty who was about to cry, Wei Xingyi was instinctively anxious. The brain doesn't know how to think anymore. Seeing that Wei Xingyi was still very nervous about himself, Chen Huidi breathed a sigh of relief. Chen Huidi looked at Wei Xingyi tenderly and said, "I thought young Master Wei had forgotten me for so long." In the past, Mr. Wei often asked people to give her food or fun things. As long as he is not out on a mission, he will remember her and try to find ways to please her. She thought she could hold Wei Xingyi tightly. But I don't know what happened recently. Wei Xingyi seemed to have disappeared suddenly. It seems that since that time she deliberately found Kui Hejin and also deliberately provoked Wei Xingyi, some things have been different. This made Chen Huidi feel that some things were beyond her control. Wei Xingyi hurriedly said, "How could it happen? Don't be sad. I've been busy recently, so I didn't go to you." This was the first time that Chen Huidi took the initiative to look for him, which made Wei Xingyi a little flattered and smiled naively, looking like he was worthless. However, Wei Xingyi was also stunned for a moment. He seemed to have indeed forgotten about Miss Chen recently. All he could think about was the way he was hanged and beaten that day, and all he could think about was practicing martial arts and letting his master teach him. But how could he admit it in front of a beauty? The beauty is so weak and seems to need his protection. He didn't even dare to speak loudly. Chen Huidi lowered his head and said softly, "I really shouldn't have troubled you last time. I knew I would cause trouble for you. Master Kui, he. I was just frightened, I didn't expect him to talk and threaten me like that. I don't mean anything else. I only got to know him last time when he went to the bookstore to deliver books. Don't misunderstand me." Speaking of Master Kui Hejin, Chen Huidi was also a little reluctant. Why did that person reject her like that? She is beautiful, talented, and her family is rich. Her conditions in the town are among the best. But Kui Hejin never spoke falsely when he spoke to her. When Wei Xingyi heard this, he said cheerfully, "Don't worry, I won't misunderstand you. That's all a misunderstanding. Mr. Kui has a wife, so naturally he won't have any thoughts about you. His master is so powerful, everything he makes is so good, he is beautiful and capable, so Master Kui has such a wife, how can he look down on others? Only men can understand men. Besides, that was his master, so he had to protect him." Since he recognized Zhang Ziluo as his master, Wei Xingyi respected both Zhang Ziluo and Kui Hejin. Chen Huidi felt very anxious after listening to Wei Xingyi's words. It's possible that this person didn't understand her. Chen Huidi gritted her teeth secretly, not daring to speak so reservedly anymore. "I can only make it clearer, last time you said you were going to teach Master Kui a lesson, did anything happen to you?" Wei Xingyi was stunned. "Of course something happened to him, okay. That day I was almost tortured to tears by Master. I lay down for several days before my body recovered. Of course he would not say this in front of a beautiful woman. Oh, since it's a misunderstanding, it'll be fine." Chen Huidi looked at Wei Xingyi with doubtful eyes and said, "You didn't do anything. How can you do it? Don't worry, as long as you don't go to Master Kui again, Master Kui won't cause trouble for you. His master, he could see it. As long as he didn't provoke the master and his family, the master would not bother to take action." Chen Huidi was furious after hearing such words. But she had to hold back her anger and said softly, You look very familiar with Mrs. Kui. Not familiar either, but I think Mrs. Kui's wife, Mrs. Zhang, is quite nice. You will know if you go to the dock to buy her things. She is a good person and makes good things. You will understand after getting in touch with her. Chen Huidi looked at Wei Xingyi in disbelief. Is he stupid for praising another woman in front of her? What good is a village woman? Chen Huidi was unwilling to give in, thinking that she would look back and see what was special about that woman. Also, Wei Xingyi clearly said he would help teach people a lesson, but did nothing. No wonder something was wrong during this time. Chen Huidi was unwilling, but could only continue to look weak. Wei Xingyi thought that he would continue to practice when he went back and could not waste time. Hurry and said, Miss Chen, I will send you chili meat sauce when I get back. This is made by my teacher, Mrs. Zhang. It's delicious. Well, I'm going back first, and I'll find you later. In Wei Xingyi's eyes, practicing martial arts and becoming stronger is the most important thing. He has the heavy responsibility of the family on his shoulders. As he becomes stronger, his father will be relieved. When running darts, your subordinates can better protect their lives. Seeing Wei Xingyi leave, Chen Huidi stamped her feet, somewhat unwillingly. When Chen Huidi walked back, he called the maid who was hiding aside and said, Go and ask about that little lady Zhang. Also ask the people around Wei Xingyi who he has had more contact with recently. She wants to see who dares to rob someone from her. Yes, miss. Zhang Ziluo naturally didn't know this. In the middle of the morning, she sold out all the chili con carne sauce. He counted more than 1,800 taels of silver, plus the 2 taels of silver and 400 taels of silver that Wei Xingyi ordered, that's 4 taels of silver. This makes Zhang Ziluo very happy. And selling chili con carne is much easier than making pot helmets and chive boxes. The work is done in the middle of the morning, so you can close the stall early and go home. Zhang Ziluo went to buy some soybeans first, and then went home to continue making tempeh. She went to Lin Zuzu's stall to buy some meat. Lin Zuzu said happily, Sister Zhang, the chili meat sauce you made is so delicious, my parents are full of praises. My mother just made cornmeal steamed buns last night. She didn't need to cook, she just ate them with chili con carne sauce. I ate 2 cornmeal steamed buns. 2 days from now, my brother will be taking a bath at the academy. I was wondering if I could order 2 kilograms from you so that my brother can take it with him when he goes to the academy. Lin Zuzu felt happy when she thought that her brother would be able to go home soon. Zhang Ziluo also has younger brothers and sisters, so she understands Lin Zuzu's mood. No wonder you are so happy, my brother is coming back. Lin Zuzu smiled and said, not only that, I am also happy to see you. You see that you are in the chili meat sauce business. You buy a lot of meat from me, and you are also taking care of my business. Then I'll tell you something quietly. Looking at Lin Zuzu's mysterious look, he also looked to see if there was anyone around. Zhang Ziluo asked curiously, what's the matter? Lin Zuzu said happily, my parents have arranged a marriage for me, and that person is a scholar. Although Lin Zuzu looks carefree, she actually has a girlish heart at heart. She is 18 years old, which is a bit old. She is still doing business in public, and people in the village are talking about her behind her back. Besides, she also has a younger brother, so there is no need for her to find a son-in-law. She always stays at home, and it is inevitable for others to gossip about him. She herself sometimes longs for a family and someone who knows how to feel warm and cold. So Lin Zuzu was very happy to be able to get married, and she was also very happy when she heard that she was a scholar. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 137. Zhang Ziluo looked at Lin Zuzu's expression, her face changed slightly, and she couldn't help but ask, how old is that person, what is his moral character, and what are his family conditions like? Lin Zuzu said, My second aunt said it was very good. The man's family has a store. He is 20 years old, and his family has a lot of land. The conditions are good. The key is not to dislike my butchery business. I've seen him and thought he was a very nice person. He studied in a private school in the county, and I heard from people that he was quite honest. Linzazu doesn't have many friends on weekdays. Her peers in the village who are the same age as her are all getting married and having children. That means she is still doing business. Those who are a few years younger than her don't play with her, as they seem to be afraid that her reputation will be affected. In fact, she herself feels that she relies on her ability to make money, and there is nothing shameful about not stealing or robbing. But the villagers still can't help but gossip behind their backs. As time goes by, she will feel a little uncomfortable. I feel comfortable talking to Sister Zhang. Moreover, Sister Zhang has a calm and majestic feeling about her that makes people trust her. So she would tell her innermost thoughts quietly. Zhang Ziluo said with some worry, "Sister Lin, don't blame me for talking too much. I think you should inquire more. I don't know how the other person's parents are." Lin Zuzu said, Su Muhan's father passed away early. He and his mother lived together, and he was a filial son. I think people who can be filial to their parents will not have bad moral character. Upon hearing this, Zhang Ziluo's face hardened, feeling that the matter was not simple. First of all, in this era, it is normal for scholars, peasants, merchants, and scholars to look down on businessmen. Moreover, many scholars in this era also have a high level of vision. Some ordinary people would be picky about Lin Zuzu, let alone such scholars. There are also mother and child who depend on each other for life. This kind of thing is not a mama's baby. Sister Lin, she is always filial to her parents, but sometimes she is also foolishly filial. Zhang Ziluo was a little worried about Lin Zuzu, so she could only give a warning. But what about that person? She couldn't make a decision for Lin Zuzu. Lin Zuzu nodded and said, "Sister Zhang, thank you, I will ask people to inquire more." Zhang Ziluo couldn't help but say a few words. Fortunately, Lin Zuzu didn't get angry and listened carefully. Zhang Ziluo returned home with something on her mind. For 2 consecutive days, Zhang Ziluo continued to sell chili con carne in the morning and worked at home in the afternoon. Every day people come to buy leek seeds. Most of them are people from Yangliu village, and of course there are a few people from other villages. They also learn the news from Yangliu village. But they are all people who have eaten leek boxes, otherwise they would not be willing to spend so much money to buy leek seeds. Of course, most of the people who come to buy leek seeds are from good backgrounds. Those who don't have enough to eat are reluctant to buy leek seeds. After the 3rd day, Shi Mo Academy happened to have a rest. Kui Hejin does not need to go to school all day long and can rest at home. Zhang Ziluo originally wanted Kui Hejin to take a rest. But Kui Hejin didn't take a break either, but got up early to help. Zhang Ziluo did not go to the town to set up a stall that day. Instead, "I'm busy making chili con carne. When Han Binky brings the jars, they can be filled." In the morning, Zhang Ziluo's family started to get busy. At mid-morning, someone came. "Brother Kui, Brother Kui." Hearing the familiar voice outside, Zhang Ziluo looked towards the fence gate and saw that it was Lu Tingan. Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Hejin, who was burning firewood, and said, "Your friend is here, please come in and sit down for a drink of water." Zhang Ziluo felt that Lu Tingan sometimes seemed to have a bad brain when he spoke. But as long as Kui Hejin is happy, she will be happy. He is usually quite cold and aloof, and it would be nice to have friends to talk to with him. Kui Hejin stood up slowly and simply adjusted his sleeves, his movements noble and elegant. As if he were still the young master of that aristocratic family. He has always retained some noble habits that are ingrained in his bones. Kui Hejin walked to the gate of the fence, looked at Lu Tingan, and said with a gentle expression, "Why are you here?" Lu Tingan was very happy when he saw Kui Hejin and said, "Oh, the college is on vacation for the past 2 days, so I went home. Hurry, I brought you 2 books to read. I also have some articles I'm writing here, and I'd like to ask for your help." Although Kui Hejin did not go to college to study, Lu Tingan felt that all of his classmates could match Kui Hejin's knowledge. Every time Kui Hejin helped him with articles, he made great progress. The thing he was least good at before was writing articles. Master said that the articles he wrote lacked insight and had nothing new. But since Kui Hejin explained a lot of things to him, he felt like he was enlightened. So as soon as I took a rest, I couldn't wait to come to Brother Kui. I also brought you some from Suxiangjai, the most famous snack shop in the county. It's much more delicious than Zuji's snack shop in town. Kui Hejin welcomed Lu Tingan in and said, "I told you, there is no need to buy anything." Lu Tingan said, "That's different. Last time I ate the chai box made by your wife and thought it was so delicious. I have to bring some snacks here anyway." Lu Tingan has a familiar temperament. Even if Kui Hejin looks cold, he can talk a lot by himself. Himself did not regard himself as an outsider. But maybe this is the only way Kui Hejin can have such a friend. Kui Hejin said, "Let's talk in the room first." "Good." Lu Tingan nodded and was about to follow him into the house when he smelled a strong fragrance. He couldn't help but sniffed and said, "Brother Kui, does your wife seem to have cooked something delicious again? This fragrance is even more tempting, and my mouth is watering." Because it reminded him of the taste of the leek box last time. Kui Hejin nodded and said, "We are making chili meat sauce." "What it is? I've never heard of it in town." Lu Tingan spoke loudly, and Zhang Ziluo happened to hear it while she was stir-frying the chili meat sauce. She turned around and said, "I created this myself, so I can't buy it anywhere else." Lu Tingan's eyes lit up and he said enthusiastically, "Is it just like a leek box? I've been asking around in the town and I haven't heard about a leek box, and no one knows what a leek is." But it was really delicious. After eating it once, he had endless aftertaste. "However, I have been busy studying in the academy and taking college exams recently, so I don't even bother to go home. But when he has free time, he will walk around the county with his classmates. I have eaten all kinds of pies and burritos, but none of them taste like a leek box." The way Zhang Ziluo looked at this man, he was obviously a foodie. "It's been a month, and I still miss the taste of the chai box." "You arrived just in time. It will be out of the pot right away. You will know how it tastes after you taste it." Lu Tingan looked at the beautiful woman in front of him and smelled the aroma of chili meat sauce in the pot. He thought that no wonder Brother Kui didn't like it when he said something bad about her before. He also said that this was his wife. Lu Tingan's expression changed, and he smiled and said, "Thank you very much, sister-in-law." Looking completely familiar, as if he has forgotten what he said before. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 138. Zhang Ziluo was stunned when Lu Tingan called her sister-in-law. This person looked down on herself before, thinking that she had forced Kui Hejin, and she felt very sorry for Kui Hejin. "Why are you calling me sister-in-law now? Although this person looks like a foodie, he doesn't look like someone who can change his stance for food." Seeing Zhang Ziluo raising her eyebrows at him, Lu Tingan rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment and said, "Hey, if that one isn't called sister-in-law, Brother Kui will be unhappy." Lu Tingan still cares about Brother Kui's feelings. Zhang Ziluo was stunned for a moment while stirring the chili meat sauce in the pot, and then her heart skipped a beat. She couldn't help but look back at Kui Hejin, who was pouring water gracefully. Zhang Ziluo couldn't even imagine what it would be like for him to defend himself. Zhang Ziluo didn't say much, just said, "You are Hejin's friend, go sit down and drink some water first." "Okay, sister-in-law." Lu Tingan has a sister-in-law, and she is very positive and does not look forced at all. Zhang Ziluo laughed helplessly. Mrs. Kui went to build a house in the back and was not at home for the time being. Kui Hejin poured water for Lu Tingan and said, "You drink the water first, and I'll light the fire. I'll talk to you after I'm done." After saying that, Kui Hejin sat down at the edge of the stove again to light the fire. Looking at Kui Hejin's movements, Lu Tingan was stunned. No, brother Kui actually lit a fire. The most important thing among scholars is that a gentleman should stay away from the cook. But brother Kui is so knowledgeable, but he is still busy burning firewood at the stove. This gave him an incredible feeling. Brother Kui looks good even when he burns firewood. It is so pleasing to the eyes that people can't take their eyes away from it. But the key is not whether it looks good or not. But how can brother Kui make a fire and cook? Did Zhang Ziluo force brother Kui to burn firewood? Lu Tingan wanted to ask anxiously, but he also knew that this was not the right time to say anything. Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Hejin and still wanted to help her light the fire first when her friend came. "It will be fine soon. Just put a piece of firewood in the stove and burn it. Go talk to your friends." Kui Hejin used an iron hook to gently stir the flames of the firewood on the stove, and pulled the bellows from time to time. He kept saying, "It doesn't matter." Zhang Ziluo also knew that Kui Hejin's decision would not change. Lu Tingan was watching from the side and realized that there was something strange about the bellows pulled by Kui Hejin. He couldn't help but ask, "Brother Kui, what are you doing with this? Why is it different from making a fire at his house?" His mother and grandma didn't pull anything while they were cooking and lighting the fire. "I just heard the sound of hula hula, which was strange." Lu Tingan couldn't sit still, so he came over and knelt down to take a look, and found that the flames were burning brightly in the stove. The stove was full of flames in his sight. He was surprised and said, "What a strong flame. Is this blown by the wind?" Kui Hejin explained unhurriedly, "This is a bellows. If you use the bellows to blow, it will be easier to ignite the firewood. When it burns, the flame will be stronger." When Lu Tingan heard this, he became interested and said, "It looks so magical. There is such a thing. I've never seen it." After saying this, Lu Tingan himself was stunned. He discovered that the things made by Brother Kui's family could not be seen or heard of anywhere else. Brother Kui's household items seemed to be quite rare. Lu Tingan thought of his mother and grandma struggling to light the fire, and asked, "Is this bellows easy to pull? Can I give it a try?" Kui Hejin took his hand back and gave it to Lu Tingan and said, "Okay." Lu Tingan excitedly stretched out his hand to hold the handle of the bellows. "Is it enough to just pull it like this?" Kui Hejin nodded and said, "Well, if you pull it back and forth, the wind will come back to the stove." Lu Tingan stretched out his hand and moved it slightly, but he couldn't pull it at all. Then he exerted some strength and pulled back and forth, and found that the wind was blowing loudly at the mouth of the stove. This made him excited. "It's really useful. Brother Kui, where did you buy this bellows? I also want to buy one for my mother and grandma. It's not easy for them to cook and light the fire on weekdays. Sometimes the weather is humid and the firewood is a little damp and not dry enough. The fire on the stove burns and becomes very small. They have to pull hard and sometimes have to light it again. It would take a long time just to light the fire and boil the pot." But he saw Brother Kui lighting the fire like this, and the pot would heat up quickly. If the flame is so strong, the pot will naturally boil quickly. He thinks that in this case, less firewood can be used. Zhang Ziluo stir-fried the things in the pot and said, "This is a bellows made by my father. If you want to use it, go and buy it from my father. The market price is 100 cents. When Lu Tingan heard that it was 100 cents, he thought the price was acceptable. Moreover, the bellows is easy to pull up. Once you master the method, you can pull it with great force. Then can I go to your dad's to buy it?" Zhang Ziluo said, "Then I will go back and ask you." Her father will probably make 2 or 3 more and put them at home so that they can be sold more easily. Are you sure you want to buy it? Lu Ting'an said, of course, 100 cents each, I will definitely buy it home for my family. Lu Ting'an is also a filial son. Although he seems careless on weekdays, he also knows that it is not easy for his parents to support him in his studies. Although his family's conditions are good, the cost of studying is also very high. The pen, ink, paper, and inkstone bundles and repairs are not a small expense. Zhang Ziluo thought for a while, if she had nothing to do in the afternoon, she would go to her parents' house in the afternoon. Zhang Ziluo hesitated and said, "Husband, I thought if I have nothing to do in the afternoon, I would go back to my parents' house and ask." "Well, I can go back with you." Zhang Ziluo's eyebrows moved slightly. She thought for a moment, then looked at Kui Hejin and said, "Would you feel restrained if we go together?" Kui Hejin said without hesitation, "No." After a pause, he added, "If you want to go back and have a look, I will accompany you." No matter how stupid Lu Ting'an was, he could see at this time that brother Kui didn't seem to be forced or indifferent to his wife. Obviously I care about it. Otherwise, if the wife wants to go back to her natal family, let her go back. Not only that, he will also accompany you. His father was kind to his mother, but his mother was worried about her grandparents and would not go back to her parents' home if she wanted to. Grandma and dad will be unhappy if she goes back frequently, because they feel that she is always thinking about her family. Generally I only go back during the holidays. I never expected that brother Kui would react like this. He is too kind to his wife. He is so good-tempered and easy to talk to, so he doesn't even think about it. Although Zhang Ziluo didn't say anything, her heart warmed and she couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth. While he was talking, there was a knock at the far door of the fence. "Is someone coming?" Lu Ting'an's ears were very good. He stood up and looked outside. When he saw the figure of a young man at the door, he was stunned. "No, brother Kui, do you have other friends?" Kui Hejin turned to look outside, but when he saw the man holding 2 large frames at the door, and then saw the wooden jars exposed above the frames, a dark light flashed across his eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 139. Kui Hejin's eyes were filled with a flickering luster, making it difficult to distinguish emotions. But Lu Ting'an felt that brother Kui's aura was a little different. His expression was gentle just now, but suddenly he became a little fierce. So this person is not brother Kui's friend. But the man at the door is a little strange. Just knocking on the door and not saying anything. Zhang Ziluo felt a little silent and turned to look at the door. At this glance, she suddenly saw Han Binky. Zhang Ziluo's eyes lit up and a smile immediately appeared on her face. She put the spoon aside and hurried to the door. The whole person passed by Kui Hejin and Lu Ting'an like a gust of wind. Zhang Ziluo came to the door and looked at Han Binky and said, "Is it done yet?" Han Binky has a withdrawn temperament. Zhang Ziluo asked, and he replied, "Well, it's done, 100, you can check it?" Zhang Ziluo moved out of the way and said, "Come in quickly, put it down first, and go into the house to drink water." "No need." Han Binky put down 2 large baskets of wooden jars, and carried a large basket on his back that also contained wooden jars. Han Binky put everything down and stood next to him. It seemed that she wanted Zhang Ziluo to check something. Zhang Ziluo knew Han Binky's temperament and was not surprised. She briefly looked at the wooden jars in the 2 large baskets and a backpack. It's the same as what she drew on the design drawing. There is also writing engraved on the outside of the wooden jar, Qinwei Xiang chili meat sauce. Qianwuxiang is the brand that Zhang Ziluo temporarily thought of. As for whether to use it later, Zhang Ziluo hasn't thought too much about it yet, and just uses this name for the time being. Zhang Ziluo looked at the appearance, size, and writing of the jar and thought it was very good. Suddenly, pennies and a half feels a bit cheap. Zhang Ziluo said sincerely, "Thank you, you did a good job. With these jars, you can pack 80 jars per kilogram and send them to Wei Zhengyi." Han Binky moved his lips to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything. He helped to take out the things and go home later. From Lu Ting'an's point of view, it was Zhang Ziluo chatting happily with this young man. Lu Ting'an looked at Brother Kui's calm expression, as if he had returned to his cold demeanor, and said, "Brother Kui, who is that person? How come he looks so good with his sister-in-law? My sister-in-law didn't even bother making chili con carne, she went over to talk to the man. Is that man here to deliver something to my sister-in-law? Isn't it my sister-in-law who forced you to do so in the first place? Is it possible that she didn't follow you willingly? I think this person doesn't look like an ordinary person." Lu Ting'an spoke openly and expressed the doubts in his heart. Kui Hejin pinched the center of his eyebrows fiercely and whispered, "You don't need to speak." Lu Ting'an felt the air conditioning around him. He realized that Brother Kui might be unhappy, and he quickly covered his mouth. Although he covered his mouth, his eyes flickered, and he couldn't help but make various speculations in his mind. Han Binky wanted to help take things out of the box. He arranged them neatly in the basket and helped arrange them neatly in the yard when he took them out. Looking very serious and meticulous. Zhang Ziluo looked at his movements and her expression moved. "Thank you very much this time. I'm thinking of ordering another 300 jars from you. What do you think?" Han Binky nodded slightly and said, "Okay." He speaks a bit slowly and seems not used to interacting with others. 300 jars, the total price is 450 cents. But this time Zhang Ziluo followed normal business and gave a deposit of 200 cash. Han Binky naturally had no objections. With this job, he and his father can buy some food to eat. His father was ill before, and part of last year's harvest was sold to buy medicine for his father. Although his father is in good health now, the food at home is indeed not enough. Zhang Ziluo mainly orders 1-pound wooden bottles first. After discussing with Han Binky was ready to go back with his things. Zhang Ziluo looked at his back, feeling a little lonely for some reason, as if he was carrying something strange on his shoulders. She opened her mouth and said, "Well, wait a moment." Han Binky stopped and looked back. Seeing the girl's clear eyebrows in the sunshine, she smiled at him. Then Zhang Ziluo went into the house and packed some chili meat sauce, and said, "This is the chili meat sauce I just made. Here it is for you. You can take it back and eat it with your father. No need to bother." Zhang Ziluo said, "This is not troublesome. It's okay if you help me make something and I give you something." Zhang Ziluo was very happy when she thought that these wooden bottles could be used to hold chili con carne and make money. "I thought it would only cost 2 or 3 pennies to make such a wooden bottle by hiring a craftsman. 1.5 cents is actually very cheap, and the work is pretty good. If your business grows in the future and more wooden bottles are needed, you will save a lot of money. The money saved is more than a little chili con carne. Besides, she felt that we might have to collaborate more often in the future." Zhang Ziluo's eyes are bright and sincere. Han Binky thought about the chili con carne made 3 days ago. His father could eat more after eating it. He hesitated for a moment before taking it in his hand. "Thank you." "You are welcome." Han Binky left, and Zhang Ziluo looked at the wooden bottles in the yard very happily. "It's just ready for bottling." At this moment, Lu Ting'an came over and couldn't help but ask, "Sister-in-law, who is that person? Why do you look so familiar to each other?" "Business partner, you see these bottles are made by him, and the price is quite cheap. And this one, These two are molds for making snacks, they are very well carved. Once you have the mold, you can make snacks, and when the house is built, you can raise these snacks. Lu Tingan suddenly realized, it turns out he is just a craftsman. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, well, almost. She doesn't know much about Han Binky either. Lu Tingan thought of Brother Kui's unhappy expression just now, and said deliberately, I thought they were very close acquaintances. You both sounded familiar when you spoke just now. Zhang Ziluo didn't think much and just explained, you can't talk with a cold face when doing business. Don't be stupid in reading. If you are stupid in reading, even if you pass the scientific examination to gain fame, if you don't understand the ways of the world, you will not be able to get along in the officialdom. Had this person not been a friend of Kui Hejin, Zhang Ziluo would not have bothered to give him advice. Lu Tingan said unconvinced, why don't I understand? I understand very well, okay. Besides, if there are things I don't understand, Brother Kui will point me out and teach me. Zhang Ziluo paused and looked at Lu Tingan with suspicion. Just like Kui Hejin, who is cold and indifferent, and has an indifferent look that repels people thousands of miles away, he can teach Lu Tingan how to be worldly. Lu Tingan looked at Zhang Ziluo's suspicious eyes and said, there is nothing wrong with what I said. Brother Kui is the most powerful person. That person just now is not as good as Brother Kui. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 140. Zhang Ziluo frowned, feeling more and more that Lu Tingan was not thinking well. Why are you comparing others to my husband? Lu Tingan breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. To my sister-in-law, that man is an outsider, and Brother Kui is her husband. Yes, this is good, Brother Kui should be fine. Sister-in-law is right, outsiders cannot compare with Brother Kui. Zhang Ziluo put down the bottle and planned to go into the house and scoop out all the chili con carne so that it could be bottled. After bottling, it can be sent to Wei Xingyi. When Zhang Ziluo entered the house, she found that Kui Hejin had helped scoop out the chili meat sauce in the pot into large basins and wooden barrels. A big pot full of food has been scooped out. Zhang Ziluo smiled with crooked eyebrows, thank you, husband. Kui Hejin said softly, this is what you should do. Why do you need to say thank you to me? What needs to be done next? Bottling. Kui Hejin naturally heard what Zhang Ziluo said to Lu Tingan just now. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, each bottle can hold 1 caddy. Let's fill 80 bottles first. Kui Hejin said warmly, okay. Speaking, Kui Hejin began to fill the bottles. Lu Tingan also rushed to help. 2 people took the barrel and the big basin to the yard to bottle. The space inside the house is a bit small and a bit busy. Lu Tingan carefully observed Brother Kui's expression while helping. I always feel that Brother Kui treats his wife very differently. Kui Hejin felt Lu Tingan's gaze and said calmly, what's wrong? It's nothing, I just think Brother Kui, you are really kind to your sister-in-law. Kui Hejin stopped bottling the bottle and said calmly, compared to what she paid, this is not good at all. Lu Tingan didn't know why, isn't this good? I always feel that whatever his wife says, Brother Kui will agree with it. It feels like Brother Kui listens to his wife very much. This is not good enough. In his family, his grandma listens to his grandpa, and his mother listens to his father. In many families, men have the final say. At Brother Kui's house, it seems to be completely different. No wonder Zhang Ziluo wants to marry Brother Kui. Even if he is a woman, he must try every means to achieve his goal. But he is a man, so he will naturally not have any unnecessary thoughts. I think it's good, but my father doesn't treat my mother like this. But how should I put it, Brother Kui, I think the atmosphere in your home is very good and comfortable. Unlike my family, my mother doesn't dare to say anything or have her own ideas, she always listens to my grandma or my father. His mother is busy working and doing things every day, working more and talking less, so that grandma will be less likely to find fault with her. But he felt that there was very little smile on his mother's face. Mother misses her grandparents in her heart, but she never dares to say anything. He remembered that when his grandmother was sick, his mother wanted to take some money or food back to see her. His grandmother would scold his mother for always thinking about her family. Later, his mother took nothing but went to the mountains to dig some wild goods to see her grandma. He remembered that after his mother came back at night, she secretly cried in the house. Later, when he grew up, he became better educated. Because he was very knowledgeable and promising, his mother also gained some status in the family. However, he has always believed that when a woman marries someone, she belongs to her husband's family, and she really shouldn't go to her mother's family often. After a pause, Lu Ting'an couldn't help but ask, "Brother Kui, wouldn't you be angry if my sister-in-law misses her natal family and returns to her natal family often?" Kui Hejin laughed a little, but seeing Lu Ting'an's confused look, he answered, "Not going to be mad. Why, shouldn't a woman be a member of her husband's family and live towards her husband's family?" Kui Hejin rarely said a few words to Lu Ting'an. That's not the case. They also have feelings and concerns. They are thinking about their parents and relatives. These are normal things. After a pause, Kui Hejin continued to speak calmly, "You can think about everything from your own heart. You will understand if you try to think about things from another angle." Hearing these words, Lu Ting'an seemed to understand something at this moment. He seemed to understand his mother's position. If I were my mother, if I couldn't help myself and couldn't go back to see my parents, I would definitely feel uncomfortable. Thinking of his mother's hard work over the years, Lu Ting'an suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. He wants his mother to be happy. "Brother Kui, thank you, I understood it immediately." Kui Hejin shook his head slightly. Zhang Ziluo naturally didn't know about this episode. She was busy kneading dough in the house to make it rise. In this way, the noodles are almost open by noon. That way you can make snacks. While they were busy with this, Mrs. Kui came back. Lu Ting'an quickly called out politely, "Auntie." Old Mrs. Kui naturally recognized Lu Ting'an. He had been to the house before. "It's Ting'an. You're welcome. Just treat this place as your home." Mrs. Kui exchanged greetings with Lu Ting'an and hurried into the house. Mrs. Kui excitedly said to Zhang Ziluo, "Ziluo, I went to check it out. Our house is so beautiful, big, and grand, and it will definitely be comfortable to live in. The beams will be put up immediately. After the beams are put up and the roof is built, the house will be really completed. Our house is the only one in the village. Many people in our village go to see it and are envious of it. The front yard and backyard are so big, you can grow vegetables. But it's mid-March now, and everyone is ready to help build the house and go farming. Although our family only has 1 acre of land, with a big yard, it's like having an extra field." Mrs. Kui was very happy and talked a lot to Zhang Ziluo after she came back. Zhang Ziluo said, "Mom, I'll make the dough after I've kneaded it. When the dough is ready at noon, we'll make snacks and we can serve it to the rafters in the afternoon." Mrs. Kui said, "Can we make snacks now?" Zhang Ziluo took out the 2 snack molds and said, "These are the finished molds, just right for making snacks." Mrs. Kui took it in her hand and took a look at it and said, "This mold is really beautiful. It is small and exquisite. It is much prettier than the molds on the market. It will definitely look good when it is made." Zhang Ziluo said, "So, I didn't rush to buy it in the town and found someone to make the mold." Mrs. Kui imagined that the house would be built soon, and her smile almost overflowed from her eyes. "The time is just right, don't be in a hurry, you can make it in the afternoon. Are you a little busy today? I remember you said that after filling the chili con carne sauce, you still have to deliver it to others. I saw that there were so many bottles in the yard when I was delivering them. I asked Li Zheng to borrow their bullock cart for use. The conditions in their Donghe village are simple, and only the Li Zheng family has one cow. Everyone is envious. With the bullock cart, there is income. When farming, you use oxen to plow the land. When you are not busy, you can use oxen carts to pull people and goods to make money. Zhang Ziluo's expression changed as soon as she heard the bullock cart. It is indeed inconvenient not to have an ox cart. Mom, if I want to buy a cow, how much will it cost? Mrs. Kui was startled. Ziluo, do you want to buy a cow? If you buy a cow, it will cost you more than 10 taels of silver.